Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome here. Oh, I've got him on the screen yet. I need to turn it off. Spoiler alert. That's going to be my guest right there. But anyway, welcome to my office here in my office hours here on Twitch. And this is a very special episode today. This is number 91. I've got a guest who you just saw a little sneak preview of, but he is going to be teaching me some cool Laravel and PHP stuff. So I've been out of the PHP game for a while. Occasionally I'll dip back into it, but I've got here a bona fide PHP developer who runs his own independent consulting business and does a lot of PHP stuff, and is the person who has forked and revived the Laravel Couchbase connector. As we've mentioned in this stream before, I've done some episodes on it trying to get that a demo to work there, and we've got that. So now we're going to get into some real Laravel and Couchbase development today. So he's my guest. I'll be bringing him on in just a minute here. We've got to take care of some business first. This is a question-friendly channel, so even though I have a guest on today, please go ahead and ask your questions right there in the chat. Happy to answer those and go off on tangents if we need to. We're gonna try to stick to building an app today. But if you have questions that, especially for JR, get those questions in, and I'll be happy to relay those to him. I'll be monitoring the chat. Hey, AJ 2017, thanks for hanging out and checking out the stream today. This is going to be a good one. I'm a member of Team Live Coders, so I'll bring it up here on the screen. If you're looking for other live coders to follow, this is a great place to start. Wow, a lot of people streaming today. It's a big list, but Twitch/team/live coders, and go check this out. All kinds of different topics, time zones, technologies, personalities. You definitely want to check that out and see if there's anybody there interesting that you want to follow. And there's another list down here, the Awesome Developers streaming list. Let me just put the Live Coders plug into the channel here. And if you go to github/bnb/awesome developer streams, there's a big list of developers who are streaming. Not just the Live Coders team, but all throughout the internet. So if it's Periscope, Twitch, Live Coders team or not, wherever they are, it'll be listed here. I'm seeing some dropped frames happening right now. So just give me a second here. I'm going to try to get a handle on my internet here. There may be some family members who are streaming. Lots of high bandwidth stuff right now. So let me go ahead and take care of some of that. So just give me 1 second here. I don't know if that's going to be the problem or not, but we'll see. Okay, and it's that one. Yep, there's that one. And yep, that one too. Okay, now I did notice I was having some issues today with internet just in general, so I don't know what's going on. That could be related. I don't know. But we're going to keep an eye on that. Hopefully it won't affect the stream too much today once we get started. But anyway, if you are interested in following live developers, live coders, go check this out, github/bnb/awesome developer streams. All right, and you can find previous episodes of this show on GrovesTube, bit.ly/GrovesTube. You can find episode 90 was just published there today. Go check that out, and you can leave a comment, like, subscribe, leave your questions there, and I will address them on future streams. Some events coming up. So I was on Tail Learn Code's stream yesterday. If you missed that, you can go check out Tail Learn Code, and you can see a YouTube channel. You can find that video. It's probably still on Twitch as well. But that was in preparation for the Codepalooza conference, which is coming up August 19th through 21st. It's going to be a virtual conference, different than years past, but you definitely want to go check that out, codepalooza.com. I'm still dropping frames. This is disconcerting. I don't know what's going on, but I'll keep monitoring that best we can. And I also wanted to mention the Couchbase Connect Online CFP, call for papers, call for presentations, whatever you want to call it, is open now. That closes August 21st. You got plenty of time, but if you are interested in talking to a group of developers who are into NoSQL, into Couchbase, into doing cool stuff, and you want to get your presentation and what you're working on in front of those developers, this is a great venue for that. So go here and submit your session, Sessionize/Couchbase Connect Online. That event will be October 14th and 15th. Again, it'll be a virtual event. Some of it will be on demand. Some of it will be live, is my understanding. So definitely want to go and check that out. It's going to be free, but if you right now we're looking for speakers. So if you're interested in speaking, it doesn't have to be a really long, involved topic. It could be a lightning talk, something really cool you want to point out about NoSQL or Couchbase or your experience with Couchbase. This is the place for it. Okay. Yes. So I mentioned this trivia game or Jackbox reward if you're going to cash in your Buckazoids. Today's probably not the best day to do that. Because we've got an agenda and we've got a guest. If you do cash those in later on, if you don't see this message, that's fine. I will still redeem it, but it'll just be in a future stream. So we're taking rain checks today on that. So sorry about that. All right. Last time I did the live coders unboxing. That went very much longer than I suspected. Lots of great questions with that. So that was fun. Go back and watch that previous episode. So that's what we did before. In the future, I've got this question that came in on YouTube about Visual Studio Code theming and dark theme and Visual Studio and how to get those to look, use the same theme. So we're going to address that in a future episode. I've also got another package here from Microsoft that I'm going to do another unboxing. So I got something from the live coders, got something from Microsoft. I'm saving that one for next Tuesday's stream. We're not going to unbox it today. That should be fun. And I've got some more stuff with Azure Functions we talked about, and I want to get to some automated backup and all these other things. But today is a very special episode because I'm going to bring him on here so you can see him. There he is, J.R. Lawhorne. He is going to help us learn some Laravel today. So he's got a green screen, and I need to go ahead and adjust that because it is supposed to chroma key it out, but it doesn't seem to be wanting to do that. Oh wait, I don't have it turned on. That would be why.
I was going to say, I don't see myself.
Okay, whoops. I just closed it up there. There we go. So look at that. It's kind of an artificial green screen. He's got a zoom background that's green, and I'm able to just remove that green with OBS. So there you go. So it's not exactly a true green screen, but it works. So, and we can hear you now too, JR. So
the
say hello.
key doesn't work yet.
Yeah.
Or it's not working for me.
So anybody who's in the chat, let us know if JR's sound is loud enough for you to hear. Maybe say something, JR. Maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm J.R. Lawhorne. I've been writing code since like 1997 or something like that, and professionally since 2002. And if you can hear me, then say yay.
I can hear you. Should I say yay?
Yeah, say yay.
Yay.
Yay, Couchbase, Laravel, PHP.
I like the sound of that. Okay, I'm seeing the bars, and it looks like it's going okay, except that I'm still seeing these dropped frames issues. So that's making me nervous. Do you have Twitch open up on your
in the
computer?
browser? I'll close it though.
No, maybe just take a look to see if it is dropping frames or if there's problems.
Oh,
that would be
the Twitch app. I could start the Twitch app.
Oh, okay. Just to see how that goes. And just a reminder, as we go through today, this is not really, we have done some preparation, but it's not really like something we've practiced. So we're just going to do a lot of just traditional pair programming here. We're going to work together to try to create something. We'll talk about what that is in a minute. But by all means, if you have questions, especially about what we're doing, please ask those in the chat. I'll be monitoring that as best I can, and we'll try to address those. JR may know better than I will if it's a PHP or a Laravel specific question, but we'll get to that. Alrighty. So if you're ready to go there, JR, I'm going to start the setup here a little bit.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm just playing with Twitch.
Okay, just let me know if it's bad, if it's actually dropping frames and buffering and that sort of thing. But what I've got here is a git clone of this Laravel Couchbase demo that JR created. He also created is not the right word, but we've talked about this before. He has revived a Laravel extension to use Couchbase with Laravel. So he's created a fork, and made some enhancements to it. And he's also created this demo project here, which is kind of the all-in-one way to try it out, try out Laravel, try out Couchbase extension, and do that in one project. So we're going to use that today. And if I go to this scripts folder, and there's a Docker folder in there, you'll see that there's a Docker compose file. Hey, TBD Gamer. I noticed that your video didn't come up. Your intro video. What is that about? TBD Gamer, let me know if it's if there's any sort of dropped frames or anything. If the Twitch feed is really bad, it might be TBD Gamer that I don't know. I don't know why it's not showing your video. But I love when a plan comes together. So just imagine an A-team video right here. Okay, so let me just change directory back here and open up. Okay, stream is looking fine. That's good to hear. So I'm just going to open up Visual Studio Code, which is my editor of choice. JR is not using Visual Studio Code, which is totally fine. He's using a tool that I've used before called PHP Storm from JetBrains, which is very cool. But what I want to show you is in this Docker folder, there is a Docker compose file. And what this does is it will basically, it's an all-in-one. It spins up a Couchbase server for you. It spins up PHP and Nginx. So 3 different containers, 3 different images are going to be spun up by this Docker compose. And then what we can do now is, because of this volume here, correct me if I'm wrong, JR, but because of this volume, we can actually make changes directly to the Laravel project.
That's right.
And it will immediately refresh, not refresh, but immediately be available when we refresh the page.
Right. So that line maps your local file system into that Docker image, or the Docker container, whatever the right term is.
Now, I've made a few changes to this Docker compose file. And this is because if you go back to previous streams, I've had some problems getting this to work locally. I've gotten some error messages that we couldn't quite diagnose because it's working fine for JR. I think it's working fine for others as well. So it's something going on with my environment with the script. So what I decided to do was, instead of build an image myself, which is what this Docker image, a custom Docker image for Couchbase server, what I've decided to do is just plug in an out-of-the-box image for Couchbase. Now, I'm using Enterprise. It doesn't matter. You don't have to use Enterprise. You could use Community here, which is, I think is what JR is actually using. But what this does mean is I have to take some extra manual steps to configure Couchbase server. Not a big deal, but I do know, hey, it's Calvin. What's going on? Good to see you, Calvin. Hope things are going okay for you. Glad you're here. This is going to, if you're able to get JR's script working, and most people are except me, then it's going to automate a lot of this stuff for you. The setting the username, creating of a bucket, all those sorts of things. So I'm going to take those manual steps today. But other than that, I'm using almost the latest version of his demo. So right here, I'm going to go to the scripts and Docker folder, and I'm going to say Docker compose up. And that's all I need to do really to get the environment going. So there's a little bit of download time here, because I built these earlier, but I removed them all because I wanted to demonstrate the whole process. Again, this won't take very long though. So maybe, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, before you start this, the instructions are on the GitHub page. So there's step-by-step instructions that should work. And
Yes.
Of course, you'll need Docker Desktop running before you get this going.
I will actually bring up somewhere. Here it is. The Laravel Couchbase demo here on GitHub, and I'm going to go ahead and set that as a current project as well. And so all the instructions are here in the README. And this is all based on another repo called Laravel Couchbase, which is an extension that provides eloquent, we'll talk about what that means today, support for Couchbase and query builder support for Couchbase with Laravel. So that's going to be some very cool stuff we're going to get into. All right. So maybe could you talk about what we're going to do today with Laravel? What are we going to try to get accomplished?
Yeah. So
And maybe what is Laravel? Maybe we can start with
yeah.
that.
So what is Laravel?
Yeah.
So Laravel is a framework. It's a PHP web framework. It's got all the things you don't want to rewrite when you start a web project in PHP. It's almost like if you've ever done anything in Ruby on Rails. It's kind of Taylor Otwell, the creator of Laravel. I think he was a Ruby on Rails guy before he started Laravel, um, and so he had that kind of in mind. So Laravel has um, lots of lots of stuff kind of built in. Um, if I open up my notes here,
Yeah. I
um,
would compare it also to like an MVC framework. I think is a
yeah, it
simple way
is. It's
to
an
talk about
MVC
it. Yeah.
framework, so model view controller.
All right.
So it uses the MVC pattern, um, and it's got you got your models. Models are kind of like your in-code representation of your data model. So if you have a customer in your data model, then you probably have a customer class in your code. And you probably, if you were doing relational databases, you would have a customer table in your database. If you're doing Couchbase, you might have customer document types in your database. And then, of course, it's got views and controllers. The views are typically HTML pages, um, and the controllers are kind of the traffic cops. They take requests from the router. The router basically takes URLs from a web page or an API and translates them into controller destinations. And then the controller, um, depending on what call it is, it does different things and either returns a page or takes some action and then returns a page. But we'll see that in a little bit. But it's also got Laravel's also got routing that I just talked about. They've got sessions, validation, error handling, logging, um, asset compilation for JavaScript and CSS, built-in cache busting for JavaScript and CSS. They have a middleware concept that sits between your router and your controllers, that take care of things like authentication. They've got CSRF protection kind of built in. So lots of stuff kind of built in that if you were just to, start a PHP project on a server and you just said, "Oh, I'm going to build it in PHP," and you didn't want to use a framework, then you would end up re-implementing a lot of this stuff. Um, so that's probably a good pitch for using a framework. Now, why do you want to use Laravel? Laravel's probably the most popular one at this point for PHP. Before Laravel, I've used Cake PHP, which is also nice, but then I discovered Laravel and said, "No, this is better." And I don't remember why I decided it was better, but it is, but it really is. And so, why? And then I had been writing PHP code for a long time too. I started very early in my career with PHP code, so um, there's no good arguments for why PHP might be better than some other language. To me, it's just what you know. If you're a .NET developer and you've been writing in .NET, then you're probably going to do that for your web framework. But for me, I was used to Unix servers and Linux servers, so PHP was kind of a natural fit from the beginning.
.NET and C Sharp is my main wheelhouse, but I've written a lot of PHP in my day. I think there's some really great things about PHP, and there's some things that are not so great. I think
Hmm.
that's true of any language, right? Oh,
Right.
Calvin started with PHP as well, and one of the projects I built that I basically handed over to Calvin a couple of years ago. I was originally PHP, so I've built PHP websites, you know, for customers for production
Hmm.
in my career. So, and I'd say, just because of WordPress, not only because of WordPress, but just because of WordPress and MediaWiki, PHP is running a lot of the web. You may not even know
Yeah.
it, but PHP is everywhere. I
Yeah. I
think
think
even Facebook might still be on PHP. Is that correct?
it was 80% a couple years ago, I think was the number.
Yeah.
That's not to suggest you should go out and start writing plugins for WordPress because I've heard that's terrible. But
I've written some WordPress plugins. I mean, again, there's some pros and cons to it. But one of the things that I think PHP is sometimes it's looked down upon by other types of developers as being kind of this messy Wild West. It grows spaghetti code. Um, but I mean, the reason I think it gets that reputation is because PHP is so easy to get started and use. It's so ubiquitous that a non-developer who wants to solve some problem with the web can get up and running and solve that challenge very quickly and easily. Now,
Right.
in the long run, that may be a problem if you have to maintain that for years and years. So, hence the reason for frameworks like Laravel
Yeah.
here and Cake PHP.
And the
So,
language itself is still alive. I mean,
yeah,
there's still proposals for language features that are kind of in the works. I mean, I think they're at 7.4 or 7.5 now
yeah,
as far as versions. And a lot of people's experience with PHP, if you're an experienced developer and you started with PHP, you were probably using version 5 is my guess.
3 was for me.
3,
Yeah,
wow, that's even further back. And there, a lot of the language features, I don't even know if they had classes. I don't think they had classes in version 3,
I don't think so.
or anything near object oriented. But they've added those things, and so it's getting nicer and nicer to work in.
Calvin says PHP 4 for life. But I think PHP 5 is where a lot of those major features like classes and maybe even namespaces and things really started to
Hmm.
come into play. And I think PHP 8 is currently underway in terms of planning and development. So, yeah, it is definitely an active language with a huge community and lots of examples, good documentation. And I like PHP quite a bit.
Yes, and there is a Couchbase PHP extension.
There is official Couchbase SDK for PHP, which
Hmm.
your extension uses behind the scenes.
That's right.
So it's that's the way a PHP developer would interact with it. But there are some things in Laravel that it makes more sense to have a Laravel specific extension. So why don't we get into it a little bit here? So what
Sure.
I've got running here is Couchbase Server, which was created by the Docker Compose file that's part of your
Hmm.
project. So I'm going to create a cluster name. I'm going to say Matt and JR's incredible cluster.
Excellent adventures.
Yes, excellent cluster. There we go.
Excellent cluster.
Excellent cluster. And now the default credentials in your project are these right here. So I'm looking at the .env file. So I'm just going to
Right.
follow along with those. So it's admin and then secret 1234. If you want to change these, that's fine, but just be aware you might have to change it in a couple places right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just if we're talking just demo and getting started, just go with the grain. So I'm going to accept the terms, configure, and we're on enterprise here. So this may look a little different if you're on community, but I'm going to uncheck analytics and eventing. We're not going to use those. We're probably not even going to use search today, honestly. So, but we'll just leave that one checked for now and save and finish. So those are the manual steps I was talking about that normally um, this Docker Compose and the scripts would handle, and also a bucket which is called LVCB. So that I think that's short for Laravel Couchbase, right?
Right.
So I'm going to give that half the RAM there. Why not? So that's it. Those are all the manual steps that would normally be taken care of by the script if I could figure out why it was breaking on my computer. But that's it. So we're all set to go. Now, if since I've already run Docker Compose, that actually the server is running, right? So if I'm not mistaken, is Nginx the web server or is
It is.
it
So
is? Okay,
Nginx is the web server, and it passes requests over to that in the PHP FPM image,
right.
and that's what's processing your PHP.
Okay. So this is like the web server. If you're using
Yep.
like Apache or IIS or something, it would be that here instead. I
Hmm.
don't know if you can run IIS in a Docker image or not, but this is the
I'm
actual
not sure.
processing part of the PHP,
Right.
and then this is the Couchbase. So there's three services here. So
Right.
notice it's port 9090. So we're going to bring up
Yep.
localhost 9090
9090.
right here, and we should see Laravel Couchbase demo. And we'll click on connection test, and this should work. Fingers crossed, it does.
Yep.
So
It
there we
does.
go. So we've got a basic Laravel app. It doesn't really do anything, but a basic Laravel app that connects to Couchbase. And so now we can start writing features. So what
Right.
kind of problem are we going to try to solve today?
Well, if you want, you could sync your client your revision control client, and then we'll have some basic features in place that we can build from.
Okay. Traveling salesman, Calvin says.
Traveling sales.
Yeah. So
I think we're
what
going to do pizza shop.
pizza shop would work for me. Traveling salesman is an NP hard or NP complete problem. So we're not going to solve that one today.
That's a hard one.
We were just talking about computer science classes and stuff right before the stream. Where is my darn Explorer? I'm trying to find. Oh, here it is.
Get client.
Well, I'm a UI mousy kind of guy, so
That's right.
I'm gonna bring up
Where's
Tortoise SVN here. So you've pushed some things out to the demo that I haven't quite.
Yes. Yeah. So
got
I
yet,
worked
so
on
I'm gonna pull those in.
trying to get kind of a head start yesterday.
Oh, I've got some conflicts, probably because of what I changed, right?
Yeah, that's okay. You can keep yours probably, depending on what they are.
So how do I? Let's see. Is it going to have a conflict? What's going on here? I don't know.
Docker file.
What am I doing? Docker is a git pull, and it gave me an error message. Okay, because you made some changes to the Docker file. Okay. Which is so it's just sort of blocking for now. So
Yeah, you can keep your changes though if you have a merge resolution. I don't know how to do it in
changes
Tortoise.
to workaround. Yeah, it's not giving me a conflict. It's just saying because maybe my revision is later or something. Some change. So what did I change?
you
Here's the
stash your
Docker file I
changes?
changed. That's nothing. I could stash them. Yeah. It was really just that script right there. This doesn't do anything.
Yeah, all that stuff in the Docker directory doesn't. At this point, we're up and running, so
Right.
that stuff is. You might not want to get rid of it, but
Yeah. Well, I just want to. The Docker Compose is the main thing. So let's try this again. Pull. I don't think you made any changes to Docker Compose, did you?
I don't think
Yeah.
I did.
There we go. Okay. So there I just pulled in your changes. So if I refresh this page, am I going to see something different?
Should.
Okay. Look at
There you
that.
Bang.
Much
It looks
more,
prettier,
much
too.
cooler. Yeah. Much cooler looking sort of thing. But it shows the connection right here on the homepage.
Yep.
This is one thing that I noticed. Maybe tell me if I'm wrong here, but with Cake PHP and Laravel, one of the things that kind of gives you out of the box is like a list of sort of sanity checks and tests, typically. So, connecting to a database, you wouldn't see a default screen with like, oh yeah, your database connection works, or oh yeah, your SHA key or whatever is set.
Yeah, I know. So I coded all of this.
Okay.
Basically, I'm running a query. I'm running a nickel query to try to get the data stores, and that returns the data store. And then if I don't
Okay.
get any back or there's a connection error, then I just show an error right
So
there.
if I had a second bucket, it would show up here.
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't
so
tried that, but
Let's see what happens. So I added a bucket called Hello World. And if I refresh this, look at that.
bang.
2 buckets now. Amazing. So I'll go ahead and delete this one. We don't need that. So we got the 1 bucket. There's a link to the demo on GitHub. And we've got, what is this? If you're successfully connecting the Couchbase server, click Orders on the menu up here, I assume, and start playing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. So we've got a error because there's no index for nickel
you
yet.
didn't create your
right?
primary index.
Yeah. So
Wah, wah,
that's
wah.
probably another thing that would be handled by the automation.
Yeah, it would. It's
What's
handled by
happening
the
here?
setup script.
Okay, so I'll just do that. Create primary index on LVCB. Now, primary index is probably not the index you want for production, but for development, it's totally fine. We're not going to deal with a large quantity of documents today. So I'll refresh this page, and we'll see what happens here. So this is the query it's trying to run, looks like. So it's nice that you're outputting the error message here as well.
Yeah.
Class
That is,
form not
that's
found.
actually built-in thing with Laravel, the page that you're looking at.
Oh, really?
That's their. I can't. It has changed in recent versions of Laravel, but this is the current look. So anytime you get an exception thrown in your code, then you get a stack trace and you get all this nice UI. Now that's in development. So Laravel's got it's got environment variables, and so when you're in development mode with Laravel, then you get this screen. If you were in, like, for an exception thrown in production, then you would just get an error message.
Sure. Sure. So speaking of error, I've got a class form not found here.
Orders blade. Let me check. Resources, views, orders. Can you check your code?
Sure. Let me look under. So this is the sort of the folder layout of a Laravel
Yep.
project.
And so you'll go to resources
Resources,
and then views
views, orders,
and then orders.
and we're looking for a form,
Is there
or looking for this. Yeah.
What did it say?
So it's an error message.
Form. Oh, I know what you need to do.
Okay.
If you open a terminal in your project directory.
Okay, let me just do that here. Z Proj Laravel. This was in the
Should be in the
this
directory.
folder right here, or
Yeah, that looks like it is it. Yeah.
okay.
And do a composer install,
Composer install.
and then just hit return.
Oh, okay. This is kind of like npm install sort of thing.
It is.
Okay.
Missing from your system. Oh gosh. ext Couchbase. Okay, so you go back in your code editor and
Right.
open composer.json.
Composer.json, which is right here. Composer.json.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And then there where it says ext Couchbase, that line,
Mm-hmm.
just delete that whole line.
Delete this whole line here.
Because Composer is trying to check your system for it. And
Okay.
because you're on Windows, you're not going to have it. But it doesn't matter because you're not
Okay.
running that stuff locally.
All right. I tried it again.
ext Couchbase, same type. You could do Composer update.
Composer updates. So Composer is kind of like npm or NuGet if you're not familiar
Right.
with PHP.
Composer is PHP package manager. Yeah.
So what is this doing, and why are we getting that form error?
Yes. So one of the dependencies in the project is ext Couchbase. So that's the Couchbase extension for PHP.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were running your web server locally or your PHP server locally on your on your PC, then your PC would have that installed and Composer would know that it was installed.
Okay.
But that extension isn't actually required because your PC is the only thing your PC is doing right now is housing the source files that
Right.
are getting mapped into the Docker container. So the Docker container has it, but Composer can't see that.
Right. So right now it's updating. So what's with the form error that we saw, and why do we have to update dependencies for that?
The error that you saw is on a dependency for form. So the form class is part of the Laravel collective HTML form elements,
Okay.
which is not built into Laravel. It's kind of it used to be built into Laravel, but they extracted it out into what they call Laravel collective. But it's form helpers. So like input
Got
box helpers and submit buttons and form open and form close, stuff like that.
All right. So we got another error message here. It looks like
6.7. Your requirements could not be resolved. Laravel Couchbase 0.6.7 requires ext. Ugh. All right. Can you revert your changes in Composer?
yes.
.json.
Mm-hmm.
And then save that, and then let's see if you can connect to the PHP FPM container in terminal.
Okay, and that would be like
So if you
I
if you
can
cd into that Docker directory, then you'll be able to use Docker Compose and connect to the name, I think.
Oh, okay.
Scripts Docker, yeah.
Okay, and you're saying Docker Compose,
Docker Compose, and then I think it's execute. Yeah.
like exec
Yeah,
or execute.
exec.
Okay.
And then, or maybe it's the name of the. I think it's the name. So try PHP FPM.
Okay.
And then execute bash.
Bin bash like this.
You could try that, or
Okay.
maybe just bash. Either way.
Okay.
Uh,
It looks like exec comes
yeah,
first.
it's exe first.
Oops. I just messed it up. PHP. What was it?
So you're going to
PHP FPM.
execute the bash command.
Bash. And then the name of the image.
Yeah, then the name of the container. Yeah.
So this will give us, oh, no such service.
Just try bash maybe.
Okay.
No.
What I think it's other way around,
Okay.
like that. There we go. So now I've
There
got
you
a
go.
terminal inside that container.
Argument orders.
Yeah.
So now you're in that container. So if you do an ls, you're in var www.html. So this is the same directory you have on your local machine.
Right. This is the one that's shared with the volume, right?
Right. So now what we'll do is we'll try Composer install here.
Okay. And then the
And that seems to be
PHP
working.
SDK is installed here already.
Right.
So,
So this is the actual machine that this is
Right.
running on. And so when you were running Composer on your Windows machine, it couldn't see the environment of this machine. It could only see the files in the project.
Right.
And so this is getting all the Composer dependencies that Laravel has and that the project has.
So I'm noticing a lot of Symfony in here. That's
Yes,
a
so-
different framework, though, right?
Yeah, so Laravel borrows heavily from the Symfony framework.
Okay. Symfony's been around for a while. I think that was back when I used Cake PHP. That was another competitor. Was
the
Symfony?
competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cake was nice. I was really impressed with Cake until I got to Laravel. Laravel is it's got a lot of the same concepts. It's still MVC, the same way that Cake is, but it seems like there's just more implemented in Laravel, and the community's also pretty good with Laravel. You've got they've got a pretty great Slack channel that especially if you're a beginner just trying to get started and you have kind of basic questions, most people just jump in and help you out. There's a couple moderators, I think, but most of the people in there are community members that are just in there hanging out. And then there's also Laracasts. So Laracasts is a site by Jeffrey Way. Yeah, there you go. And they have some free, I think the getting started with Laravel or the, you can look at, explore the Laravel. Some of them are free and it's kind of surprising how much of his content is free. But I think maybe Laravel from scratch may be free. Up there on the top.
Cool. This is kind of like these are videos or are these?
Yes, it's videos. Okay. Yep, videos, and he kind of walks you through from the very beginning. If you're new to the framework and you want to learn it from the ground up, then that's a great resource. And I'm pretty sure that there's courses on there that you can learn the entire framework without paying for anything. And of course, he's got paid content too.
Mm-hmm. So it seems to be taking a while on this one here. This lead common mark. Is that a big one?
I don't know. You can control Z and try it again maybe. It's stuck.
All right. Oh, it took me out to
it took you
PowerShell. That's fine. Was it? It was
Composer install.
So it won't have to do all again. It'll just.
No, it should cache those others.
Cache one. So let me ask you another question here. When we tried Composer with on Windows, there, I'm going back and look at this. I'm seeing, Composer's going to look at this and go out and install. There's a Laravel framework package somewhere that's going to install, right? And Laravel Tinker, things like that. But is the ext Couchbase though? You said it has to be installed here on Windows. Does that mean it's not on Composer?
Right.
Okay.
So I don't know how that works in Composer, but that's like a local extension. It may be that ext is kind of a magic word that it looks for that extension on the machine.
Would typically Couchbase be something that you'd want to see on Composer though? Or is this something that you expect to be something you have to install? Because I don't know enough about PHP world to say one way or the other.
So so that kind of ensures that your system has the PHP extension for Couchbase installed. Is that the question?
No, I'm just wondering like why can't I get ext Couchbase directly from Composer
Oh,
instead of
because
having to install it directly?
yeah, I mean, it, I don't know if you could do that. Um, it's a direct PHP extension, so it's a compiled PHP extension that you have to install in your system, and you have to adjust your PHP configuration file to make sure it sources in the library.
Hmm.
So the way PHP extensions work are usually they're a compiled C library usually that maps into PHP, and then
Okay.
they're loaded using a dynamic library.
So this
Why
is
is
kind
my
of like a
computer?
wrapper for the C Couchbase library.
Yes, yes,
It does seem to have locked up here again.
it does. Silly PCs.
Hey, this is a Linux image that I'm bashed into here.
Yes. I don't know why it's hung up though. It's odd. Maybe it's your internet connection.
I haven't seen error message in a while here. 25 minutes ago was the last one with drop
Okay.
frames, so must be
What?
going okay now. Just can't escape yak shaving on this show, no matter how hard I try.
You just can't get this thing to work. Um, let's see. Yeah, because if you hit Control C, you'll be back out.
Yeah. Well, Control C gets us back out to bash. I hit Control
Okay.
Z before.
You do PS-AUX. So you've got PHP FPM running. That PHP for that composer install is still running. You see it?
This one right here.
Fifth line down.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So
can I
you
kill
can
that one?
you can try to kill that process.
Okay, and the way I do that is kill
Yeah.
and what?
The process ID, I think it's going to be that first number.
25. Okay, I think that killed it.
There. All right, let's try again.
All right.
No task manager on Linux. I don't know why it was hanging up though. That's the problem.
There's this common mark. That sounds familiar. Isn't that the one I got hung up on? Common mark?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
There's a
That's true.
RM-RF for common mark
Well,
here. Why is that?
Maybe you should kill that too.
Control C. Oh,
Did it go away?
kill.
Yeah, there
157?
it is. 157, yeah.
Okay.
And
Bing,
then,
bada boom.
Oh, hey, we got a
Right.
follow from Alex222. Thank you. Schrodinger's installer is what TBD Gamer says. Yeah, we're trying to solve the halting problem here now. Not traveling
Schrodinger's
salesman. All right, Composer install again.
yeah, we can try that. The next step is probably to kill the composer directory and
Okay. Which, because of volumes, I can do right here in Windows, right?
you can, yeah.
If I wanted to. That was
It's going to be, I think it's called dot composer.
a dot composer.
Terminal up.
Is it inside of app or? I don't see a dot composer folder. TBD Gamer says this is basically my experience every time I go near npm. Yeah, I think
NPM is like this too.
yeah, you have to do the same sort of thing. It's like, okay, npm delete, npm update, npm install. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try it again. But I would say PHP is probably a little better because PHP has an actual standard library of functions, right? Whereas JavaScript, not so much. So you have that massive ecosystem of little packages in JavaScript. Whereas PHP has a lot of those features built in.
Yeah. So is that progressing at all?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, hit Control C on that.
All right.
And the directory you want to kill is called vendor.
Vendor. This
Yeah,
whole
so you
thing.
can shift delete that thing.
Shift delete. What's a shift delete do?
Yeah. It skips the recycle bin on Windows.
Oh. Okay, and what we got here? Oh my gosh.
That's all the stuff it just downloaded.
Yeah. This is a slow delete.
Yeah, it might have been faster on the other side.
Yeah. You can see a pretty cool little graphic
Yeah, it's a
here.
nice little graphic. You could kill it if you wanted to and try it on the other side.
I don't know. Sometimes killing it just takes longer, but we'll try it here.
Oh, you think?
Okay. Talking about killing it in here.
Yeah,
It's vendor, right?
RM minus RF vendor.
RF vendor.
Yeah.
That'll skip the recycling bin too, I believe.
Yeah, it will. No recycle bin on Linux. Some people will alias the RM command to do something like move instead of delete. Yeah, it's pretty common in like enterprise environments where they don't like.
There's still nothing like a
administrators.
recycling bin on Linux, really?
No, there's no recycle bin on Linux by default. Maybe on the if you're using one of the window environments, maybe they have something, but the RM command is gone forever. Well, sort of gone forever.
I mean, it's probably still there on the disk.
Yeah, it is. It just
Not reliably retrievable, though.
Right. It deletes the inode or whatever it's
Boy, this is
called.
taking a long time, too.
Yeah, it's because of Docker, I'm sure.
All right, so
It's
let's assume that this is going to finish, and we're going to build something today. So this was going to show orders, right?
So it is. We can
Yeah.
start looking at the code
Sure.
because you have that synced.
Yes.
And so Laravel is MVC framework. So if you got models, views, and controllers, the easiest thing probably I always start with is the router. So if you find your web.php, let me see where that is.
It's under routes.
Probably. I have shortcuts to do all this stuff in my IDE. Yeah, it's right there under routes, the web.php.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the web routes. There's also an API.php under there, so that uses different middleware. So if you were going to write some API endpoints, like if you were going to use, you're going to write a REST API or something like that, then you would use the API.php file.
So this would be more likely to return JSON or XML
Right,
or
exactly.
whatever. Okay.
Yep.
And this is more likely to use to return HTML.
That's right.
Things like that. Okay.
That's right.
Cool.
And so what you can see in here is, the first route up there, that first route name welcome. So that's like the home page.
This is interesting. So this is basically saying I'm naming this route, which can be whatever we want it to be. If it's an HTTP request for, just the main domain, right?
That's right.
It's going to pages controller, which is a class elsewhere, I assume. And then this at welcome, that's an action inside the class.
That's right.
So if I went to
the pages controller,
where is the pages
so
controller?
if you go into, I think it's app HTTP
controllers. So pages controller. There's a welcome function right here,
right?
which corresponds to an MVC like action, right?
That's right.
This is a controller. So that's pretty cool. You're just saying class and method name, function name.
Yep.
Do we call them functions in PHP or methods, or are both valid?
I call them either or.
Okay.
I think, they're functions, they're methods. I don't know. I think methods kind of specific to object-oriented
Right.
programming.
Okay, that makes sense. So in
But
PHP,
it's
I could
still-
have a function outside of a class, though, right?
Yes.
Still,
Yeah,
and
you
so
could
that's
have
just a function.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah. But I suppose, I don't know, it's kind of weird to call it a method because functions in the syntax.
Right. Well, it's the same. I guess we don't say function in C#, but yeah, we don't. I guess it would just be be void or whatever here instead.
Yeah.
Return type.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
okay, cool. So then the next one here is a little different. So instead of route name, you're saying route resource.
Yeah, so this route resource gives you, by default, it gives you all of the typical endpoints that you would want for a controller. So it gives you an index. I've got them listed out there in the comment: the index, the store, the show, the update, the destroy, and the edit. And so if you think about CRUD actions on a particular object or a particular model, those are all things you would want. So the index would be kind of like the list of orders in this case.
Okay.
The store would be the controller method that you would call to store a new order. The show would be the page that you show the specific order. Update would be the method that you would call to update an order. Destroy is obviously delete, call, and edit would be more of a view to edit an order. Um, and you don't have to implement them all. It kind of depends on what you want to do with your user interface.
Could I
mostly.
create another route of, if I wanted to call it, foo? Could I do that as well?
You could.
Okay.
You would add another. Not under the resource. Kind of the resource kind of gives you all those by default, and
Oh,
then
it does. Okay.
and then if you want to add more, you kind of format them up the way that the single route up there is formatted.
I see. So this corresponds to. So is this a URL? What is this
That's
token
the
here?
name.
Okay.
So if you have another, let's see, if you have that terminal window over on your, it's
Still
still
going.
working.
Gosh. Maybe Windows was faster.
You might try it on the PC side. So if you have a terminal in that same directory on the PC side, it might work too.
Just
I'll show you a command that you
control
can
of
use.
that. Okay. So here we are in. I'll go back, and it was what, vendor? Yeah, the vendor directory is still there.
Yeah, that's the one we wanted to delete.
So was it rmdir? I can't remember. I haven't done this
On Windows?
on Windows in a while. Although that's probably an alias for something on PowerShell. Shoot. You said you had a command in mind to do this?
Yes, if you're. Well, I was going to show you the way that you can list your routes with Laravel.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so I want to
So-
get this vendor folder deleted.
Yeah.
So,
you can.
Oh,
yeah,
looks like
you
it's
might as
almost
well.
there. So it's been making progress.
It's yeah. There you go.
Okay, we'll let that run. Okay.
Let it run, and then
Okay.
we'll get a
Now I'm
terminal
back here to open up another console. All right. Okay, here's a question coming in from TBD Gamer. So, there's convention attached to the actions in the controller. So get equals show, or did I misunderstand that? I haven't actually. I wanted to bring up the controller class here, but let's. I want you to show me this command that you're about to show with showing the.
Yeah, and this might make it a little clearer.
Okay.
So try PHP Artisan is you'll want to use the space and then just hit return. And it's not working on there. So let's try it on the image, the Docker image,
What am I doing?
because you may not have PHP installed on your Windows box.
I have it somewhere, but I don't. It's probably like one of those all wrapped into one package. I don't know if it's running or anything like that. So okay,
Or if it's in your path, or if you're
yeah, any of that stuff. So we're going Docker compose.
yeah, Docker compose, and then
I probably have back here in the buffer somewhere, right here,
Docker,
right?
Yeah.
FPM, is that where we're going?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Now I'll try PHP Artisan,
Artisan.
and that should. Gosh, it's just that Docker container doesn't want to run anything. Maybe it's because you're messing with the file system still.
Yeah, it could absolutely be the case. Nope, vendor's gone.
Huh.
So. Yeah.
This
there
is
it
so
goes.
weird.
Okay.
Well, I could share my screen. That doesn't help you.
Well, let me go back here to orders controller. I want to take a look at this one.
Yeah.
I just want to see what's in here. So what we've got is index, store, show, update, and destroy, and those all
Right.
correspond to the comments you had here, right?
Yep. For the most part, there's a couple that I didn't implement in that controller because of the way the user interface works. I didn't create a specific. So I've got the index, so that shows you the list of orders.
Right.
In there, you can see those are query builder queries that you would normally use in Laravel against a relational database. This is using it going against the Couchbase database.
Right.
Um,
So
getting
this is
placed
kind of
orders
like
and delivered
this is
orders.
kind of like Link,
Yeah,
more query
very
builders
very
you'd see in
close to
other
Link.
languages. Yeah,
Hmm.
but it's using something in Laravel called Eloquent. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
and that's what your extension does. Is it lets Couchbase and Eloquent talk to each other?
Right. So it overrides some of the code in Eloquent, or yeah, I guess Eloquent's the right way to put it. Eloquent is basically you define your model objects and then you can operate on those. Yeah, the thing still isn't
Okay,
returning.
yeah. All right, and this returns
Um,
a view, and this is it's not strictly speaking HTML, but it's like a template.
right. It uses something called Blade, which
Blade.
is
Okay.
which is like a template processor. It's mostly HTML, and you can inject, um, some PHP logic in it with special syntax. So it's kind of, I don't know what, I forget what it's called in .NET,
It would
but
be
it's the same
Razor.
concept.
That's what I would.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it's
you
the
can think
same
of
sort of.
this as like Entity Framework, and this part as like Razor. That's where I'm
Yep.
thinking
And
so
so
far.
that's passing the view that's in orders. So that's the path to the view,
Right.
orders.index.
So if I went over here
Um,
to where was it?
that's resources views.
Resources and views. There's an orders
Yep.
dot index,
Orders
and it's
and
noticed as
index.
Blade. So it looks like HTML, but we've got this special syntax in here, I assume.
That's right. So
Excuse me for a templating language.
what do you call that? The mustache. So
Well, I mean, the mustache syntax is two curly braces, right? But
two curly braces.
I
So
mean,
Blade
same sort of
has
thing.
the mustache syntax too,
Hmm.
and then you can also put in the left curly brace, bang bang, and then close it the same way. The difference is if you use the mustache syntax, then the um, the output in the mustache syntax is escaped for HTML,
Got it.
and if you don't, then it's not.
So
So
this
if you're
is
spitting,
okay. So this is like raw. So it's not going to escape it. So
that's right,
you don't want to return any content here that's going to be dangerous or
right,
lead to cross-site scripting. That's why the
yeah.
exclamation
So
points saying "Look
that's
out!
right.
This is dangerous."
Yeah, this is dangerous.
Okay.
Well, if you're displaying user input, then you would want to use
Mm-hmm.
mustache
Mm-hmm.
syntax. But in this
Got it.
case, I'm just calling these form helpers.
Right.
Um, so there's no
Which they're definitely going to return HTML, which you don't want to be escaped.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. And so here's the mustache you're talking about.
Yep.
Yes.
And there's an example of a for each loop in
This is a
Blade.
mustache right here. Look at that mustache. Amazing.
Yeah.
This is the
I
worst
shaved mine
mustache right
off.
here.
Uh,
Okay.
oh, TBD Gamer says he gets this behavior on his machine because he has malware bytes running.
Why would you run over malware bytes?
I don't. I guess you're not running it, are you?
I don't think I'd install something called malware bytes. Just
I,
sounds bad.
I don't think I have that running on mine either. Of course, I'm using a Mac. I have a PC in the other room, but
Let's try it one more time. Artisan. Malware bytes is anti-malware. Oh, there you go.
yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why PHP Artisan doesn't want to seem to run here. Let's see if,
Can you do just PHP?
yeah, let's just see if PHP works.
dash version or something.
Oh,
Yeah, that returns.
seems to be working. Is there? So when I say PHP Artisan, does that correspond to this Artisan
should
folder right there?
be- Artisan is the command that's right there in your directory. So right under app.
Oh,
It
Oh,
comes
that's-
with Laravel. So Artisan is kind of a Laravel command that helps you. You can add objects without kind of handwriting some of the codes. You can add controllers and models and views.
something's wrong here for sure because I just tried an ls-l
Yeah,
and
that
it's
didn't
locking
work.
up. So
You might restart your
yeah, I'm
Docker
thinking
environment.
I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do. So is there just what down and up, or should I rebuild the images? What do you think?
Docker. Yeah, go ahead. That's
All right.
scorched earth.
When in doubt, turn it off and back on again, right?
3 times.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
having
so
trouble
that'll
with
take
PHP as
take
well.
a little
So
while.
I wonder if I've just got some files locked up or something because of the volume thing.
Could be.
So I close Visual Studio. Anything else? I'm going to close
Yeah, you may need to
Windows.
close Studio. Reboot.
Just reboot everything. Oh, this is still running. So,
Oh yeah, close that.
yeah. Come on.
Control
There you
C,
go.
whatnot.
I don't know if that's the problem or not, but
You were tailing the logs.
that could have been the issue. I was got the logs running. I don't know.
Could have.
Yeah,
mean-
this one still wants to hang around.
There's probably another Docker command you can use to really crush it.
Let's try it again. Man, this is new to me, so I must have done something wrong because I've done this a couple times, Docker up and down, and it never took this long to stop an
No,
image.
it's unusual.
Well, that's what happens when you go live with something and show it to people.
Yeah,
It just starts
worked
stops
once on my
breaking.
machine. That's what we always say. When somebody reports a bug,
Yeah.
it worked once on my machine. Yeah, you might try restarting Docker. I don't know if that would help.
Restart
What's that?
Docker. So that's
Or Docker Desktop.
I quit Docker Desktop. You can't see that, but I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
Leave the screen. Man, really did some damage if I have to restart Docker. Okay. Docker Desktop, running it again.
Yeah, and then there's an image, like a PS image or something like that for Docker that tells you what images you've got.
Docker PS.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Well, Docker's restarting now, so that won't work. But yeah, Docker PS will show you all the images that are running. Docker PS-A shows you all the images. Period.
Yeah, so you can probably delete it manually.
Once it starts working, but it's still starting up. So
Can't find the file specified.
yeah, it's just because Docker's is still in the process of starting. So
Rebooting.
yeah.
Yeah, but we could get that started once that recovers, and then go back to looking at the code.
Yep. We'll try to get that
If you're
composer
using a
running.
Mac, then you don't have to do this. But so when I'm doing development I do development with Couchbase and PHP and the extension, and I'm using a Mac and I run it. Laravel's got. Make sure I don't say the wrong thing. They've got a environment that you can use. I don't think it's Laravel specific, but it's for Mac. And then they have something called Homestead that's a virtual machine that you can also run on.
Okay.
All the time. Valet is what it's called. So if you have a Mac, then I would look into using Valet. It's pretty nice.
So that successfully worked, the restart of Docker. So now I did Docker Compose down, removing all the images, and now I'm doing it again, Docker Compose up.
Okay, and it's building. Yeah.
So I got to go through
And
those
you have your
manual
Couchbase
steps
thing
again.
running separately, right?
Couchbase server?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's
Okay, it's still in there.
It's still Docker. So I'm going to have to
okay, I
reconfigure
see.
that too. That's not
Yeah,
a big deal.
you will.
Yeah, our excellent cluster is gone away.
Oh no, that's okay. It's easy to get back. Yeah. So we could keep looking at code if you wanted.
Sure.
Until that comes back.
Bring this up here. And Laravel, and I'll open some Visual Studio Code. All right. So okay, so these are all the CRUD options. So index here, this is going to get placed orders and delivered orders. Now, what does this compact mean here?
So that's a PHP command that it's kind of funky because you would think it would take variables, but it takes strings.
Yeah, that is a little weird.
And it takes that place orders variable and that delivered orders variable and shoves it into, I think it shoves it into an array. It makes it available in the view, basically.
So it's like a union between these.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
PHP compact.
Is there not a union available in Eloquent already?
There's several ways you can pass variables to the view.
Mm-hmm.
So Eloquent returns so that placed orders variable and that delivered orders variable, those are going to be collections,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Laravel object that's kind of like an array, but it's smarter. It's got lots of cool
Sure.
things you can do on it.
But what I'm saying is this is going to result in two queries, right?
Right, there is. Yep.
Could I
Or you could,
instead just write a union query? And
yeah, you probably could.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
This is,
Just curious. That's not a big deal. Just
yeah. So so the where clause there were S status.
mm-hmm.
There's different ways you can do that. So
Or
you could,
could I say where status equals this or equals this?
yes,
Right.
yeah, you
That'd be another
could.
thing I could do.
Those are the only two statuses right now.
Right. I got it.
And so if you wanted to make this faster and just do one query, then you
Sure.
could just get all the orders and then post process and sort on status.
Got it. Okay. So then the next one up here. So that's an index. I come to a page. I get a list of all the orders. That's the idea
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. Linky. Yeah. Exactly, Calvin. That's what I was saying. It's very linky. This is the
Mm-hmm.
link part, and this is the razor part, basically.
Right.
to
Yep.
to keep beating this metaphor. This next
Yep.
one is called store. And this is for creating a new order, right?
Yes, and so typically on a store, so this is the endpoint on the site that you would store, a new order. Um,
So when you
and
say endpoint, I'd be like making a post to this from a
right,
form.
that's right,
Okay. Okay.
that's right, like a post request. And so when the post request comes into the router, it'll route that to the store method.
Is there anything I need to do or anything you've done to say, maybe just by saying store, the convention there is that this is a post. But like in MVC, for instance, I generally have to mark this is a post, this is a get, this is a delete,
Mm-hmm.
or all the
So
above.
that's all done in that web.php file.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you use that resource function,
Got it.
it automatically creates those. That
Okay.
one above it, you can see that is a get request.
Right. Right.
So that single one, so that's going to be a get. Um, you could make another one like that were post.
So I just using resource is conventionally saying, well, store is going to
Yeah.
be a post. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Resource is just it generates a number of routes for you
Got it.
that map to kind of default
Okay.
default
So
methods
this
with
is
default
going to create a form. So
functionality.
again, using Eloquent here, I assume, to
That
create.
is a static function on the order.
Oh, okay.
So
This is one you've
you
created
have a,
then.
yes. So if
Okay.
you follow that function, I don't know if you have that
Let's
in.
see. I don't know if we can do it from here.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
code
we go.
definition. So that's what that does.
So this is a class you've created in models.
Right.
So models folder here, and you've said, okay, well, here's what a model looks like. It's got name, phone number,
Yep.
some dates. This is interesting the way this is
So the
structured.
constructor, so fillable in Laravel, it has kind of protection against filling the model kind of arbitrarily. So there's a fill function that you can call on your models, and it'll take an array of attributes. But some things you might not want to be fillable, like hashed passwords or ID values or something like that. But if you're taking a bunch of input from a form on your site, you may want a bunch of stuff to be fillable, and you may want some stuff to be protected. So it has ways to, in your model, you can specify which ones you want to be fillable. There's also ways to say that everything is fillable or nothing is fillable. And
I vaguely remember a Rails security issue where basically if you knew the names of special fields, you could basically put arbitrary data into them and bypass any logic. So this is kind of preventing that.
right,
Okay, cool.
right. And if you go down and see that double underscore construct, so that's a PHP class constructor. And I'm overriding the default constructor or the base class constructor and calling initialize attributes.
Okay.
If you weren't using Couchbase, you would normally do that because you have a schema in your database to kind of lean on. But because we don't have a schema, I go ahead and this is just my convention. It's nothing that
Got
you
it.
have to do. And I call the force fill. So I call force fill and I set, all my fields, I give them default values there.
Okay. So
in
this
the-
I
in the
notice the
class
status
construct.
field here is not fillable. So that's a field that basically is not something unless I go through a certain path, I can't just put whatever I want for status.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's set
Cool.
in code.
Okay.
And same
Relationships.
thing with those date time
Yeah. Right. Right.
values.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what's Carbon? Is that just a?
So Carbon is a PHP library
Okay.
for time, date
Okay.
times.
Cool.
Um, and it's kind of, uh, Laravel references it, but I think it also installs it separately. I've seen 2 references to Carbon, but it's just an awesome PHP library that's used internally.
Okay.
And if you scroll back up to the top and so that dates variable that's right under fillable. Yeah, of course,
Yes.
we're using carbon.
Yep.
So by saying that those 2 fields are dates, Laravel knows that when it's doing casts or anything on those variables, it treats them as carbon dates.
Hmm.
So we can parse them out of the database, and they become carbon objects when you work with them in code.
Calvin's saying PHP looks very different from his days. We've got namespaces, we got use, we got
Yes.
classes, and holy moly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, I'm not saying it's, that it's related necessarily, but it's got a lot of the functionality you'd see in Java or
Mm-hmm.
C Sharp or even like C++ sort of thing.
Right.
But
Yep.
it's got that special blend of PHP stuff in there. So you see the
Yes,
underscore
it
underscore
does.
construct, you see the
Yep.
$ variable names,
Right.
and yeah, pretty
You can
cool.
still write really gross PHP code. You can
Yeah,
also write really nice PHP code.
all my code is gross. So relationships are here. I want to come back to this because that's going to be a big
Yeah.
part of why we'd want to use your Laravel extension.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, a question from TBD Gamer: doesn't PHP 8 come with JIT compilation as well? Do you know
Oh,
the
I'm
answer to
not
that?
sure.
Yeah. Well,
Let me
PHP
see.
8 is not officially released yet, as far as I know. So maybe they're going to add some of that. I do know. I think Facebook, since they use a lot of PHP, they came up with their own compiler. Maybe it's a JIT compiler for
Mm-hmm.
PHP. I forget what they called it. Yeah, Calvin says I can write pretty gross C sharp too. This is a saying that I heard a long time ago. I forget who told it to me, but you can write COBOL in any language, is the saying I've heard before, or maybe it was Fortran. I don't know.
It could have been.
So this is a getter. This is just like a little convenience
Yeah, so
method you've
that's
got
something I
here.
wrote.
Yep.
Um, and this is kind of a convention that I use. So some people will put a date time field in their database and they'll put a flag in there.
Hmm.
If I can avoid 2 fields, I try to.
So
Um,
you've got this is something like a Hungarian notation here, where this is a flag delivered,
yeah, that's
right?
something else I do. So if
Yeah.
it's a flag field, then I'll prefix it with an F.
Basically a Boolean kind of, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then create from request. So this is the method that brought us here in the first place. So this is going to
Yeah.
actually take this object
Yep.
and
It's gonna
turn
take
it
a
into an
request.
order. So this is kind of a little bit of mapping code here. That's what we're seeing, right?
Yes, and so that first call, the new self, where it
Mm-hmm.
says it passes request all.
Mm-hmm.
So that request all call gets all the input values from the requests, and it passes them into the constructor as attributes. And
Yep.
that kind of flows through that protection that we talked about, where you can only fill things that are defined as fillable. So that will
Got it.
set those fillable fields that we defined,
Okay.
and then below that we want to set the ones that aren't fillable. And
Right.
so S status becomes a constant value.
Right. So whenever you create from order, it's always going to be status placed.
Right.
This is always
And
going to
that's
be
just,
now. Yeah.
yeah, that's a
It's just
business
some
logic.
business logic, kind of a little bit.
Yep.
Comment from Calvin: in my early days, language bashing was cool. I'm over that. Use what works. Use what makes you happy. Learn what looks cool. Learn what interests you, etc. I can't agree
Yeah.
more, Calvin.
Yep.
I gotta say that YAML and Python don't make me happy. So I don't use them, but well, I do use YAML, unfortunately. But I'm not gonna bash them. Absolutely not. There's some really cool stuff in
Yeah.
any language, any ecosystem, even COBOL, even Fortran, even Code Fusion. Great stuff going on there. So yeah, I'm with you, Calvin. I'm over the language bashing.
Yeah. I started in C, I guess, in college, and since then I think I just prefer the languages that use semicolons and don't care about white space. But
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like the curly braces. I like semicolons. They make me feel
mhm.
comfortable. Whenever I see JavaScript without semicolons, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I've thought about getting semicolon tattoos on my shoulders, like right here. What do you think? You think that'll work?
That's pretty cool. I don't know. Geek tattoos.
No one really wants to see me without my shirt on anyway. So, Calvin's saying writing tons of YAML these days. I don't know if I'm writing tons. I know Calvin's doing some really cool stuff as employer, but yeah, unfortunately, YAML GitHub Actions I find really really cool. So I'm kind of stuck with YAML for now, but it's okay. It's not the end of the
Yeah.
world. It's not my favorite place to be.
I
All
think
right.
I wrote some when I was messing with Ansible. I think it's what it was
Oh,
called.
okay.
But that was my introduction to YAML. I didn't really like it. But I'm not using Ansible anymore either. So
So and we've got the show, which looks like
yes, and so that takes you can kind of see the request comes in, and then there's also an order object that comes in, and
what?
so
Oh, interesting. So where is it actually? How is this order object coming in?
that's Laravel magic.
Ah, okay.
And so when your show method comes in,
Mm-hmm.
again, this route is defined using that resource tag, and that resource tag just kind of knows. There's an artisan command you can use that'll show all your routes. And
We
that
were
would,
trying to get that to work over
yeah,
here.
we were
So
trying to get that to work. Are
let's
you
see.
back up there yet?
Yes, here it is. So I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to. Oh, shoot. Okay. If I do -D, that'll attach it, right? With
I think
Docker
so,
Compose.
yeah.
Okay. Because I was still
Yeah.
trailing the logs. Okay, there we go. So now we've got all those images running. I want to set up JR and Matt's excellent cluster again. And I can't remember the.
Secret 1234.
Oh, it was secret 1234. Secret
Yeah.
1234. Secret 1234. My hands are so used to typing password for password. It's hard for me to type anything else. Okay, same as before, and we'll create a bucket. And create a bucket. Let's call it LVCB.
I think so.
Okay, there we go.
And then create your primary
And create
index.
a primary index. So here we go. What is going on here? Okay.
There it goes.
Index.
Still making it.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Should be back
Good.
to where you were now.
Okay. And
Maybe.
so then if I bring up localhost
9090.
9090. Oh,
Maybe not.
no. Why did you do this to me? Why have you forsaken me? Seems to be running. What am I missing here? 9090 right there.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, I suppose it's possible that
Did I make a typo? 9090, right?
Yep, 90.
It's giving me a 500 error. So shouldn't that show a Laravel
It should if
exception message?
If it got to Laravel,
Let's see if I.
maybe there's a problem with.
Let's see if I had made a typo somewhere or something.
You did revert some of those files that you had changed.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Well, looks like nothing else has changed. Just the Docker Compose is the only thing I really changed significantly.
Okay. Well, we can keep looking at code.
Oh gosh, that is just kind of obnoxious because I thought I was all ready to go and to build something, and now I keep running into these Yak problems again. All right.
Time to upgrade to a Mac.
That's not happening. All right, so we're back at order controller. So we're talking about Laravel Magic. That basically,
Yes.
this is going to do like an eloquent lookup behind the scenes for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a name for it, and I can't recall the name what they call it. There's names for everything in Laravel, but it's called route model binding. I thought of it. There you
go. Route. Okay, interesting. Because model binding is something I'm familiar with from ASP.NET, but the fact that it's going to go ahead and perform a database lookup for me, that's something I've not seen before.
What happens is if you specify the type as the function parameter there, it assumes that the ID in the route, and you have to use the same name. So in your route, there's going to be a variable called order that gets put into your route. And then if you add the type in there, then it's automatically going to go and try to look up that order by the ID.
Okay.
And then it's going to inject it into your function for you.
And you've got a compact here as well, but
is
that necessary, or could I just put in $sign order here?
It's just a convention in case I have more than one.
Got it. Okay. Okay, cool.
And so, yeah, so that pulls the order in and sends it to the view. And then the
Yep.
update function.
So this is for if I want to make a change to an order
That's
as a
right.
user.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it works kind of like a get. So you have the request coming in, and then you
Right.
have an order.
And this is going to that magic again where it
Yep.
pulls it in from
That's
the
going to send
database.
you the
Okay.
order based on the ID that's in the URL.
Okay.
And then the rest of that is basically business logic if the
Right.
request has a status.
Right.
Um,
Flash message. I'm familiar with this term, but could you explain quickly what that means?
Yeah, so Flash messages in the kind of the web development uh, life cycle, it basically puts a variable in your session, and it only keeps it for one refresh. And
Right.
so that Flash success is actually a function I wrote that's in a helper
Oh,
class.
okay.
Um,
So it's not something you build into Laravel?
well, if you follow it, you'll see what's kind of built
Oh,
in.
okay. Session
Yeah,
Flash. And
so
okay, got it.
Yeah, so Laravel has this session thing that you can call Flash on.
Yep.
The only reason I put it in these helper functions is so that I can use specific variables that I
Right.
flash. You can flash anything you want.
Right. And these probably
Um,
correspond to CSS classes, is my guess.
that's yep,
Yep.
CSS classes and view code.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So in the ASP.NET world, this is actually called temp data, which I think is weird that that Microsoft kind of went with the temp data instead of Flash, which I see everywhere else. But
yeah,
what are you
yeah,
gonna do?
yeah. And so that basically sends a message to the view that only persists for that one refresh
Right.
or that one session or that one page load.
So if I could read this in English, I would say if it does have a status set, then set it to the new status,
Yep.
and then if it is delivered, then set the delivered date to now.
Mm-hmm.
Save it to Couchbase in this case. Flash the message, and set a flash message, and then after the redirect, it's going to bring up order show view,
Yep.
which will have the flash message as part of that.
Yes.
And I'm passing the order ID to
Mm-hmm.
order show, which we saw earlier. This is the Laravel magic. Is going to see
Right.
this
So
ID and go grab the data.
that's right. So that orders show route expects that to take the ID. And so
Yeah.
if we had the environment running and
Right.
you excluded, like if you forgot to add that ID in there, it would complain, it would balk at you and say, hey, this route needs a variable.
Right. Okay.
And routes can have multiple variables too, of course.
Right. Right. Okay. And last but not least is destroy.
Yep. And I put this in here mainly as an exercise because I almost never write delete functions in web code.
There is a school of thought that says, don't delete something, use an event sourcing pattern to keep track and maybe a soft
Yeah.
delete, that sort of thing.
Right.
But,
That's right. just
to,
have a,
to do the whole CRUD, I wanted to make sure delete was included there, but we can see order delete, which you didn't have to write. That comes with
that's
Eloquent
right.
for free, basically.
It's all coming for free. Now I
Yep.
wrote the order model, but that's
Right. Well,
about
sure.
it.
Right. And then
Um,
some more logging, some flash message, redirect. Okay.
and redirect back to the index that shows you your list.
Okay. Cool. So, since I'm really struggling here, what did I make a change? I don't think so. Let's just try this again. We'll try it one more time, and if it's still not cooperating, then we'll just maybe you can share your screen real quick, and we can see it in action. Because clearly it's a failure on my side of some sort. I know you're blaming Windows, but I think it's probably more fair to
Well,
blame me.
And you play with a lot of different stuff too, right? So your machine probably gets
You're saying my
stuff
machine's
installed.
polluted?
Probably, yeah. unless you reinstall Windows every 2 or 3 months.
How dare you? Okay, so set new cluster.
It's the
JR
Microsoft tax. That's what some people call it.
secret 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 4.
I do some work on Windows, but it's pretty rare. I have to get on there sometimes and build specific stuff.
Got a
for
question from
Windows.
Calvin here. Is that syntax orders.index? Is that basically controller.route? Is that what you're saying there? Or is it? I think it's probably
I think
more
that's
likely
a
to say
view.
control. Oh, it's a view. Yes.
Yeah, so orders.index.
Yes. So if
I
you look
I'm,
at
can't remember where we were.
views here, you'll see like orders.index corresponds to
Yeah.
this view right here.
So that can be a view reference. You can use dot notation for view references. And you can use dot notation for route names.
Okay. And again, it's this 4 formatters consistently. I don't know why it does that. I see. Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah.
You thinking about writing some Laravel, Calvin? I thought you were trying to standardize on .NET over there. Okay.
I thought about moving to .NET when I decided to use Couchbase, but
Oh yeah.
I already knew Laravel very well, and I'm also maintaining another Laravel project for a business that I do consulting for. And so I thought, well, let's see what it would take to get Couchbase working with Laravel. I am using .NET for a Xamarin app, so a Xamarin Forms app.
Man, I don't know what the problem is here, but now it's just 500 error every time. Did I mess something up? I don't think I messed up credentials or anything, did I? And even if I did, it should show the Laravel screen on here. Man, this is a real goat rodeo for me. Sorry about all this. But if you want to try sharing, let's see if we can make that work.
Yeah, let me...
on the screen here. So we can see the finished product. And I'll tinker with it, see if I can figure out what's going wrong some other time.
All right, where's my share screen? You cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen, so I will stop that share. And it messed up your video, but that's okay.
That's okay. Desktop one.
Huh.
Yep.
There you are.
I have to quit Zoom to allow it to share my screen, I think. That's silly.
Quit Zoom?
I don't think I need to do that, but let's see.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to oh, here's what I can do. I can just bring you up over here. And then I will just hide this one. Hide that one. There we go. You're going to be a green background, though.
That's okay. I can change that.
All right. So we're seeing, this is PHP Storm, I believe, right?
It is. Yeah. Are you seeing it? Okay.
I am seeing it, yes. So don't show anything sensitive on the screen.
Well, I don't think I have too much sensitive. Let's... Can't live with this green background. I'll put myself back in space.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, so I use PHP Storm, and let's grab the demo out here. You should be able to see my browser.
Mm-hmm. Font's a little small. Got a very high resolution screen.
Yeah, I'm using an iMac.
There we go.
Make it bigger.
Bigger.
So this is the standard Couchbase user interface on the web, and then this is what
it should look like. Someone knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what the homepage looks like, and I think we had it to this point.
Right, we did. At some point we did.
At some point, and then we clicked on orders, and it blew up.
Yep.
Because our composer dependencies weren't in line. Which, if you were deploying something like this, you would have that all done in your deployment script. So all the code we looked at, this is kind of the end result. We have this is our index page where you can create a new order. Depending on how you want your user interface to look, you might have a specific page just to create a new order. But for simplicity, I just stuck that form on this index page at the top. And so, you know, we could put a Matt Groves and whatever. This is like if someone were calling you at the pizza shop and and you
Right.
say the first thing they ask you, okay, what's your phone number?
I
What's
used to
your
work at
name?
Pizza Shop, and that was my script. I would thank you for calling Mary's Pizza Shack, and have your phone number, please.
Yep. And then you put their phone number in
Yep.
or whatever, and then create the order. And so when I hit that create order, it goes to that. It goes over to
So that green box there is the session
this is
flash we're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the flash message. And if I open orders controller, and I don't know, let's see if I can make. I don't know how to make the fonts on here larger, but
Maybe Control Plus. That's how it is in Visual Studio.
I tried
No?
that, and PHP Storm doesn't like that.
Control mouse wheel. I don't know. Do you have mouse wheel on a Mac?
Mouse wheel, Alt mouse wheel. No. Let's see.
Let's see.
PHP Storm. Zoom font. Control editor, change font size. Editor font. Let's just go 24 maybe. Is that big enough, you think?
Sure. I think that's better.
Let's try.
What do you think out there in the chat?
28.
Is that big enough? Can you read that?
Seems like it's pretty large.
Yeah. I'm sure it looks massive for you.
Yeah.
TBD says that's readable. Okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah, so the index function, that's the first page we were on. So if we flip back here, we can see we're not on that page anymore, but that was the list page. And then we entered this Matt's phone number and his name in the form, and we hit submit. That went to the store function, and that we created an order from the request. Again, that's a static function on order, the order model. And then we flashed our success message, and then we redirected back to the show view, which is this view.
Right.
And if we open orders show, this is what that view looks like. Now in Laravel, they have kind of layouts, they sections, and so there's a layout file that defines a content area.
Right.
This is kind of so you can define a big template for your site, and then you can define sections within your template and just kind of implement what changes instead of having your HTML header on every single page, for example.
Same thing in Razor. You have a layout page or pages, templates, I guess. And same.
And so the rest of that code is just building this view.
Okay.
And so if we we got so big that we don't. There we go. Stretch out so we have top menus.
Yep.
If we go back to orders again, that's the index page, and we can see that that Matt's orders down there, and it's placed 3 minutes ago.
Yep.
And we can click on it, and we can go back to this.
Okay. And then once the pizza's delivered, then you click set delivered.
Yep. We just hit set delivered.
And there we go.
That orders or updates the order. And now its status is delivered a second ago. And then we go back to orders, and it moves down here to delivered orders. Matt grows. You can see status is delivered.
Yeah. So can we take a look at the actual document in Couchbase?
Yeah. So if we go over here to Couchbase,
you can just click the hamburger. Yeah, there you go.
So you can see we've got 3 order documents. And if you look, like if we click on that one, you can see in the URL, it might be kind of small, but the order ID, the document ID is up here in the URL.
Now, you never type that in or anything like that. So that's generated from something, right?
Yeah. So this particular ID is generated from the extension. So the extension that I kind of forked and refreshed generates this. And this is the order comes from the model name. And then it uses a hyphen. And then this is if you're a Microsoft person, they call it a GUID. If you're not, it's a UUID.
Okay.
and it just has the dashes stripped out.
Now, is there any way I can override that to generate a different way if I wanted to?
You can. I'd have to look at the extension to
Okay.
tell you exactly how to do it, but it's possible to override that.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. Maybe there's a good reason not to use UIDs, but I couldn't think of one.
Some people are opposed to using them as keys for whatever reason, aesthetics or otherwise.
Do they?
For use integers maybe, but
Yeah. Well, the trick with integers in a distributed database is you have to use those special counter
right.
documents, don't you?
Yep. So it's a little bit extra work, but you can do
Yeah.
it. But if I wanted to make it a shorter random string, or
Yeah,
change that
you
from a
could.
dash to a colon, for instance, I could do that.
Yep, I think you could.
Okay. Cool.
Or you could submit a PR if you can't.
Yeah. Pull request welcome.
Yeah. So if you copy that ID, then we can go back over here
Mm-hmm.
and throw it up here and retrieve that one document.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that particular order.
All right.
And you can see these are the same fields that we've defined, with the exception of this key ID field.
Mm.
So this is something that the extension does.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you this key ID, and you can tell it. You can override the name of this field, and you can override the name of this field, this doc type field.
Right.
This tells it that it's an order document, and that tells the extension what model to map it into. And then the key ID field, Couchbase doesn't store the document ID in the document by default.
Mm-hmm.
And when you nest models inside of documents, it's good to have the same access to the ID of that model in every document. And so one of the things the extension does is it puts this ID in the document. So let's say we had so this is an order document. Let's say once we add features to this, and we can actually order something. Maybe we want a pizza document, or we want a pizza model, or maybe just an order item that could be pizza or French fries or soda or whatever people can order. And you wanted to embed that in your order document, like if you wanted to come down here and have an array of, I guess it would be like order items.
Sure.
And you would have something like that, doc type order item, and then everything else for your order item.
Okay.
For the code to treat all of these objects the same, it's handy to have a key ID in every single one. And so this model that's embedded in the document, Couchbase doesn't consider it an independent document, so it doesn't have its own ID that Couchbase knows about. So you have to have some way to reference it typically. So the extension goes ahead and puts a key ID inside this. So this would have a key ID just like this upper level one would.
So let me ask you this, because this is a question I get sometimes from people, and it's the Couchbase, like you said, the key is kind of metadata about the document. It's up there at the top.
Right.
It's not part of the document, and you've chosen to, in your extension, go ahead and duplicate that data inside the document because it's more convenient. It's easier that way. There might be a way we could go around it, but you've done it this way. You've made a choice. Someone might bring up, well, there's a risk here, is that someone could come in and change that key ID, and that would be out of sync with the document key. What would you say? What would you say to that?
I would say that is true. That could happen, but I mean, if you're talking about people manually tweaking data in your database, I mean, if that's what the case is, then all bets are off. once you've said, it's kind of like people talk about computer security, and if you ever take a computer security class, it's kind of formalized. They're like, well, if someone has physical access to the computer, all bets are off.
Right. Okay.
It's kind of the same thing. If they've got write permission on your database, then it's, you can't really trust anything in it. By the same token, if you're writing code and your code somehow overwrites it, then that's another issue. But you should figure that out.
So this is all right now. It's handled by that Laravel extension. So it's not typically something you're going to be changing directly anyway.
You shouldn't. I mean,
it's all behind
the only
the
way I
scenes,
can see
much.
you accidentally changing it if you decided to you decided to have another model field named key ID,
Right.
um,
Okay.
and you accidentally overrode it somehow.
Okay. Got it.
Um, but
Cool.
you can. So it's kind of a convention in that sense,
Right.
which would be. But that's true. I mean, this doesn't get. I mean, unless you put an index on this field, you don't really get the benefit. You have some extra benefits with the document ID.
Yeah.
As far
Right.
as
And
retrieval.
typically, if you're going to look up an individual order behind the scenes, you're probably not using a SQL query here. You're using a key value lookup. Is that correct?
I'd have to check the extension, but I
Okay.
think so. Or it's using nickel with the use keys,
Right. Which
just
is
the use
which is
keys
still not
syntax.
as fast, but much faster
Much
than a
faster
full SQL query. So
than a full nickel
okay.
query.
Cool.
But like I said, PRs are welcome. This most of the code base in the extension is the original code base that was forked, and I tried to bring it up to
Right.
date. And another feature that I haven't talked about yet that I added to the extension because I needed it was kind of the concept of multi-tenancy,
Right.
uh, which we haven't talked about.
No, we haven't talked about. I do. Maybe we will have time to get to that, but we're coming up on 4 o'clock. I wanted to
Yep.
one more thing. So you started showing the orders there as kind of an array within that document. So if I were to want to add functionality like that to Laravel within Eloquence, like how would that look in my order class?
Yeah. So if we go, let's see. I think this is on. So this is the extension. Laravel Couchbase is the extension, and there's lots of documentation here that is pretty good. Most of it's original.
Right. When we say
But there is
original,
a
it's
section
because
on
you've actually forked another
relationships.
project, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so relations. Here's the section that I was looking at. So this is the project that I forked. Yeah, original to the forked
Right.
project. But all of these are maintained. So the first four relationships here. Let's see if I can make that bigger for you folks out at home. So the has one, has many, belongs to, and belongs to many. These are kind of the classic relational database relationships.
Right.
So most people don't use a has one. That would be where you have a foreign key in one table and you have another row in a different table, and there's a one-to-one mapping.
Yeah.
So like a
That's pretty
user
rare.
has one address or something,
Yeah.
and for some reason you're storing them in different tables. Has many is where if you have a user object or a customer object, they may have many orders, and so you'd have an orders table, and you'd have a customers table, and the orders, each customer may have multiple rows in the order,
Right.
or multiple orders for each customer. Belongs to is when you define the relationship from the foreign key side.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in your orders and you want to link back to a specific customer record, then that order would belong to a customer. And so that's how you would define it there.
Right.
And then belongs to many is many to many relationship, I guess you would call it, where you could have a recipe has many ingredients, and an ingredient can be in multiple recipes, for example.
Right.
Um,
So
and
those
then
first four you'd see with using MySQL or Oracle or
yes,
something.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
on a
and
regular basis.
you can use those in Couchbase as well,
Right.
and it works the same. A document is kind of the equivalent as a row in a relational database. But sometimes, particularly in this case, if you're doing a pizza shop application or any kind of restaurant application where you have an order,
Mm-hmm.
it may not make sense to break that out into a separate document.
Right.
You may want to just stick each item in the order in that one document.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, you might want to use embeds one or embeds many.
Which you typically wouldn't see in a relational database because
Right.
embedding
That
data
doesn't.
in a row doesn't really fit with a relational
No.
model.
No. I mean, you might be able to implement it some way if
Yeah.
you were using like JSON inside of a relational
Right.
model somehow. But these are specific to this extension that allows you to embed a Laravel model inside of another model, essentially, or embed
Okay.
an array of models inside a model.
So I would just go in and say, like that example there, items as a function I've created, and it would say this. Instead of has many, it would be this embeds many. So maybe that's toppings. A pizza has toppings.
Yep.
So we'd say, well, I
That's
guess
right.
we're skipping a step. This order has many items on it. So we'd say
That's right.
this embeds many items right there
Yeah.
in the order. Okay,
Yep. Yep.
cool.
And then when you went to save, this talks about the inverse relation too. So you can do it on both sides in each one of your models. You might have a method. Well, if you're using the embeds, it's automatic. So embeds many relations. So this is the one we would want to use if we were going to have order items on the order.
Right.
So this is using books, but we would say, this instead of a user model, this would be our order order model, and then we might have order items, and it would say embeds many order item.
And do we have to define an order item class somewhere? Another model?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Right.
do. This documentation is using string syntax, but kind of the modern way to do that is to use the class name : class.
Mm-hmm.
And I could show that in code.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to go all the way, but why don't you just mock it up in the order
Yeah.
class there?
Now, let me not before I stretch that window. Let me make it bigger. Okay, so I can show you Artisan now.
Okay, sure. Do it.
So I have, because I use this stuff all the time, instead of typing PHP Artisan out every time, I have it aliased as art, just
Okay.
ART. But it's actually PHP Artisan is the command.
And
so I
Laravel
do
is for PHP artisans, right? That was what their website said earlier.
Yeah, that's the Laravel thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I consider myself an artisan, but so these are all artisan commands, and I believe most of these are built in. You can also write your own commands that will show up in this list if you add them, which is something I do pretty often.
Cool.
And the one that we're going to look at, well, I wanted to show you the one. So art route list, or let's do art. Yeah, let's do the full thing, route list. I think it's going to be long, but no, it's not too bad. So this is when you're playing with your routes file, that web.php file that we looked at, that kind of routes the URLs into the controllers. You modify that file, and then oftentimes I'll come over here and do a route list. So you can see that, remember we had the one line that gave us our welcome page. And then this route comes from the api.php file. That's the only one in there.
Right.
And then all of these came from that one resource call that we made. And so you can see that it names them, orders.index, store, create, show, update, destroy, and edit. And over in the URI, you can see that it defines the URIs, and then the ones where you would expect the order to be, it puts the order in curly braces there. I don't know what I did there. Just highlighted something.
Copy and paste.
Yeah.
Calvin, who's the ASMR in here? Are you saying that JR has a good voice for ASMR? Is that what you're getting at?
ASMR. What is ASMR?
It's this thing Calvin keeps bringing up. I'm not really sure. Something.
It's like a radio show.
Audio. Something. I don't know. He's brought it up before in the channel, and I'm not really sure. I think he's told me what it is, but
He likes JetBrains too.
Calvin is saying that you've got a voice for ASMR. So there you go. Look it up, and maybe you've got a new career. I don't know.
I don't know. Kind of like what I'm doing, but
ASMR is autonomous sensory meridian response. Wow. That sounds like it's got to pay at least 5 or at least 6 figures, right? I have no idea.
I'm gonna have to do some research on that. That sounds like a research paper for DARPA or something. Yeah. So these routes are, you get your URIs. This kind of helps you debug your routes file to.
Right.
And you can tell middleware is something we haven't talked about, but middleware goes between the controllers and the router. It's kind of just software that can live between there and handle. You can put it on different routes. One of the most common middlewares is authentication. So,
Yeah.
um, each time you log in, you have a session, and it takes care of that for you. Um, and then the rest of these, so this order in curly braces, that's going to be that variable. So that
Yep.
route model binding that we talked about in that controller file is going to send that order variable in as a. It's going to be an ID in the URL, but then it's going to Laravel is going to convert it for you into that model.
I see. So hypothetically, you could, if you didn't use that resource, you could do this all by hand and set
Yeah,
up
you
those
could do
routes
it.
and all those
Hmm.
templates.
Right. Yep.
But
You
why?
could.
Why would you if this convention works for you?
It just
Yeah.
depends. So
Right.
sometimes, so if you don't want all of these, so some of these I'm not using. I'm using
Right.
index. I'm using store. I don't think I'm using create because I don't have a separate page to create the order. I'm just kind of
Got it.
creating it from that form where you get the name and the phone number.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a syntax where I could exclude this route, and it wouldn't be there. Right now it's in my route table, but I don't really need it because I don't even think I have this implemented in the controller.
Okay.
I'm using show. I think I'm using update. I'm using destroy right now. And I think I'm using edit. So I think I am using most of them except for create. But in a real world app, I probably wouldn't be using create, and I probably wouldn't be using destroy. So
Right.
when you carve certain things off of it, it's like, well, there is an exclude syntax that you can use with it and say, build me this resource, but exclude these specific routes, which works pretty well. I use that too. And there's more complex ways that you can set your routes up. You can use route groups. Um, but this is kind of a basic example of how you do it. Yeah, and so we were getting to what
Yeah,
were
like
we?
it embeds into the order
Art.
class. Oh, okay. We're still here in artisan.
Yeah, so we're using artisan again, and so usually what I do, if I'm going to try to create a new class or a new file, is I'll use the help command. So any of the artisan commands, you can put help in front of it, and it'll show you, it'll tell you what the options are and all the stuff. And so now I'm going to say art make model, and I'll do -R to make it a resource model. So this is
Okay.
indicates a generated controller. Oh, that's just for controllers. I won't do it on the model. But if you're making a controller, it's almost the exact same syntax, and you can use a -R, and it'll generate your resource controller for you, and it'll give
Okay.
you all those methods that it expects when you put
Right.
when you use the resource syntax in the route. Um, so we'll make a model, and by default in Laravel, it puts your models kind of in the top level directory, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't like. So I
Okay.
always put them in a model subdirectory,
Interesting.
and it's happy with that. It
Is
just
that something that most Laravel developers do? Is
I
put in
don't
model
know. I
for?
think the first project I did, I just used their just the default, but my models started building and building and building, and it was annoying. So I started
Okay.
putting them in as long as you have the namespaces correct, then it's happy. And Composer takes care of your namespace resolution. So order item, I think, is what we wanted, right?
Sure.
Yep. So we're going to create a model called order item, and that was created successfully. And then we can go back here,
Huh.
and you can see it showed up right here. And I'll go ahead and add it to Git, and then we can open it.
Let's
I'll
have a look at
double
it
click
here. Okay. So this is just like
Um,
a file new add item, just sort of blank template.
right.
Does it do anything else besides create this PHP file?
Nope.
Okay.
That's all it does.
Okay.
And of course, it had some different options there that you could choose.
Right.
I think it would inject different code. It just kind of scaffolds the model. And it's almost useless for what I'm doing because I have, when you're using this extension, I have my own model that I've defined.
Ah, okay.
This is what my model looks like.
Oh,
And
so every model has that you create is going to have those three fields It's inherited, right? Is that the idea
So
there?
this is a syntax to override the defaults
Oh, okay.
in Laravel. So by default, Laravel uses it adds a created and an updated date
Mm-hmm.
to every record by default. You can tell it to not add them, and you can change the name that you want to call them. So
Okay.
this is basically changing the name. They use created underscore at, and I try to use DT underscore for all my datetime fields. So I just override that here. And then I specify Couchbase as the connection
Right.
for all these models.
Because there could be other connections to
Yeah,
MySQL or
yep.
whatever
You
else.
could be
Yep.
running a MySQL database and a Couchbase database, and you would define a different connection for the
Right.
MySQL stuff. And then I extend from CB model, this Fieldstone Couchbase Eloquent model is what you would want to extend from
Okay.
instead of just the standard Eloquent model, which you can see by default is what you get over here. This is what you would get by default. And so what we want to do is just extend from my model, and then we can delete that include.
Okay.
And then we can use order this for reference.
So for an order item, you might have, I don't know, name of the item, maybe a price, something like that. Oh.
Yeah. So what we can do, I can just copy the constructor, and I can copy initialize attributes, and we'll just have different attributes, right?
Sure.
And so what is our order? What did you say our order item should have?
We have a name and a price. That's probably enough to start with. Like
Yeah,
large
so
pizza
this-
is $10.99, something like that.
This name.
Or as ordered is $10.99 because they went through a coupon, they picked up their toppings, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It's obviously more complex than that, but
Yeah.
just to start with, that's
Yeah.
probably fine.
So the name and the price could be the order item.
So I stands for what?
I use whole numbers, integers,
Okay.
for all monetary
Oh, interesting.
calculations in my databases, which is kind of, I don't know. I decided to do it after I researched Stripe's API.
Okay.
They do the same thing. So they only operate in pennies on their API, which prevents some rounding errors.
Some weird floating point arithmetic, stuff like that.
Some weird floating point rounding errors. So if you operate in whole numbers, you don't have to worry about that. And everything's a penny. So when you want to show it to the user, you just divide by 100 and you're good.
Yep. So I is for integer in this case. Again, kind of a Hungarian sort of notation here.
Yeah, just a convention. You could use whatever you wanted. You could also use, I'm using underscores here in my field names, but you could use camel case or
Sure.
or whatever you like. So initialize. I think that's
really it. I mean, you can
I
add
think
other
that's it.
functionality later, but
relationships, I don't really have any on this side. I'm going to get an automatic relationship on order item
right.
because I'm going to use embeds many. On
Typically,
the
you're not
other
going to
side.
start at an item and work your way back to the order. It's the other way around. You have an order which contains items, right?
Right.
So that's why you wouldn't put a belongs to.
Yeah, and you
here.
could. I mean, if you were to split this out, depends on the relationship you decide on. If you wanted to use, it's a why. So if you use has many on order, so an order has many order items, and you would use belongs to on the order item. That would be if you wanted to split them out into separate documents.
Right. Well, we're looking for an embed, right? So we're going to try here.
We're going to try to embed it because we don't anticipate that order items is going to be so large that it might create a giant document. I think that's my only so far with Couchbase. That's been my only concern. That's kind of that's the pivotal decision point that I have. I'm like, well, should I embed it or should I link it?
I mean, that's just universally when it comes to document databases. That is the question about modeling: is do I embed or do I split them out? But I think for an order, it's relatively it's not like order is going to be for 100 items typically. That would be a very atypical order at a pizza place, right? So it's totally reasonable to embed all those things. Whereas another way where it might be unbounded is, let's say you had a user and they're sending out tweets, for instance. You don't want to embed those tweets because it's unbounded, right? I could be tweeting for years. I could have thousands of tweets, and that doesn't make sense to have them inside of a single document. Those are two simple examples, but obviously it's thinking about that. It can be, a process to go through and say, which one do I do?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to think about it.
Yep.
In my own app, that's kind of what I think about. I've got different objects, and you kind of have to try to anticipate what your users are going to do when you make that decision.
So all I had to do here was you create a function called order items.
Yep. So
And
I
it's
order
just going
items, and this is in my order
Right.
model object. And then when I add an order, I could probably try to do that actually.
Would it make sense to call this one items instead because we're already in an order object? Or is that a convention you have to follow and say order items?
This is the relationship from the perspective of the order. I think with the extension, you get an automatic relationship if it's an embed on the order item. So if you had an order item that you were working with, a model object, then you could say order on it. So you could say, if I have order item, then I could say order item order, and
Right.
it would reference this other object, even though I don't have it's kind of a magic method on the embedded
I see.
model
Okay.
that you can get back to its parent.
Okay. A lot of magic in Laravel, but it's a magic that follows convention. So it's a convention over configuration, which is that
Right.
Ruby influence
Right.
that drives it.
And so
Ruby on Rails.
I think instead of writing this code out, I can show you something else that Art Tinker. So Laravel, this is something in Laravel.
Okay.
That's called Tinker, and it gives you kind of an environment in your application, just in PHP for you to write, kind of like a command line thing. But I can say
That's
namespace models, I think or maybe namespace app models. And then I can say order equals order find, and then I'll go grab an ID from the database. Yeah, we'll just use that same one. I think this should work. No, it doesn't. Connection. Couldn't look up Couchbase server. Oh, you know what it is? It's because I'm running it locally on my Mac, and it's not on the Docker container. So it doesn't the routing or whatever, the network is not.
So you'd have to go into Docker, right?
Yeah, I can do that too. Scripts, Docker, and I've got Docker Compose aliased.
Okay. You can tell you work at the command line a lot. You're kind of the opposite of me, where I'm clicking everywhere, and you're just aliased and command line.
Yeah. So it was cat. Let me see what that thing was. PHP FPM. So it was Docker Compose and then the name, wasn't it? PHP FPM.
Yeah, and then exec and then bash. I think that's right. I guess I was wrong.
Or what did I do wrong? No such command PHP. Oh, exec.
Oh no, it's exec. Okay.
And then,
and then the name of the image.
FPM.
Yes.
And
See,
then
this is what drives me
exec.
crazy about command line is trying to remember all these things.
Well, that's just unnatural. That's why I can't figure it out. Like, because you're executing a command on this container, and then you pass the argument to execute. Like, there's a split. Like, your argument goes after it doesn't make sense. But anyway. All right. So I don't think I have my aliases here, so I have to type it out. PHP artisan Tinker. Yeah, so that still works. And then I can set my namespace to app models. And then I can say order equals order. And then I think it's find. No, not that command. Where's that ID? I have to go get it again. Yeah, so there's my order.
Okay.
And now I think I can say order order items, and it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
And did I make an order item model? I don't remember if I did.
I think we did, yeah.
I think I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. That's what we were doing, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
it? Yeah, order item, and it's got an S name and an I price.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say order items, and I think I'd say create, and then I can say what were they named? S name and I price. S name.
This is an associative array in PHP, which is similar to JavaScript associative array if you've ever seen it before.
Yep. And I price might be 20 cents or something. I don't know.
29 cents for a pizza. Now we're talking.
Let's see. $12.99.
Oh,
I think that should work. Mass assignment exception. Okay,
Oh,
so this
not
is
fillable.
this is a good this is a good lesson. So when we were talking about that protection, that's what it's called. So it's called mass assignment.
Yes,
protection.
that sounds really familiar. That mass assignment exploit that was in Rails, that was years and years ago.
Yeah. So what we need to do on our order item is we need fillable. And so I could just type it in here. Protected fillable equals, and then we want to add these fields. S name is fillable and I price is fillable.
Yep.
And that will allow those fields to be filled this way. And a lot of times, there's another syntax, but a lot of times when I have an embedded model like this, I just open it completely up to mass. Like,
is there a way you can do that to just enable it?
I think it's like this. Protected. There is a way.
Okay.
There's another variable that you can set.
Sure.
So you can either set what's fillable or you can set what's protected. And the variable that sets what's protected, you can set it to none, and that'll let everything be mass assignable.
Makes sense. And for an embedded object, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting really complex with the embedded objects.
I think, so the only pet peeve I have about this Laravel Tinker thing is that if you change your code after you start Tinker, it doesn't affect what's in it.
So it loads it into memory and then...
Right.
Yeah.
So I can come back into it.
That kind of makes sense, because otherwise it get really unwieldy.
I do have a history though, which is nice.
Oh, that's cool.
So let me get my order find. So that sets my order. And then I can create order items. So now I've created the order item inside of the order.
Okay. And is that immediately reflected in Couchbase?
Oh, we're going to find out. Where did I have to get this order ID again. Make sure I get the right one.
Yeah, there it is. Cool.
So there it is. So we have our pizza for $12.99, and then you can see this is another thing it does, so that in PHP a lot of times you want to reference the ID value of your document. So these embedded items get an underscore ID field also. That's probably something I could refactor out of the extension, do a little bit differently, but just haven't done it yet.
Cool. That seemed really easy. Now, I guess I have a ton more questions, but we are over 4 right now, and
okay.
I want to be respectful of your time, and I don't want to. You've spent 2+ hours with us, and it's been terrific. But
that's fine.
Maybe we could do a future episode sometime, and
we can do a part 2 if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. There's so much to cover here in Laravel and Couchbase, and you've done such great work. So I appreciate that.
You are welcome, and I can bring course, we didn't implement the order items on the user interface, but
No, that's, I mean, that's kind of
that would be the next step.
that could be an interesting bit of work to see if Laravel has anything special to handle that, because that is a collection of some variable size, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that
You
maybe
can.
JavaScript or something to do that. So,
No, you can. I mean, you can do it. You can use JavaScript if you want,
hmm
but the classic. So there's different ways you can do this web development stuff. Um, Kind of the
sure,
old school way is what do they call it? Post, redirect, get is kind of the pattern you use. And so when you're making
right,
changes, you post your change back to the server,
sure,
and
sure,
then the server redirects back to a get response.
yeah,
But you can do
yeah,
all this with that. Um,
very cool.
Blade, of course, Blade gets interpreted and split out on the server. So you can loop through those order items just like you could loop through orders in Blade, and it would be just fine.
Very cool. Well, I'm getting some great comments in the chat. That was good stuff. This was interesting. Thank you, JL Lawhorn. And yes, I agree. Round of applause to you for your great work and great demo. Appreciate it very much. Since you are the guest, well, I put you up on the big screen, by the way, so everybody can
Oh,
see
yeah,
you
big
floating
screen.
in space. Since you are the guest, I would like to ask you if you have any preference of who to raid next.
Oh,
We're going
I
to keep it
don't.
going. You don't. Okay.
Oh, no,
Anybody in the
sadly.
channel have anybody interesting they want to raid? We've got a lot of new people on there. And we could, I haven't been to I'm Not Myself in a while. We could go there. Any other thoughts? Any other questions for JR while we're here? So I will be back on, what is today, Thursday? I'll be back on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And probably won't be going into Laravel. I've got some other stuff we get to, but we may revisit Laravel, especially since you all seem to respond so well to it. Really good stuff. Yeah. Okay. So no one else has any comments. We're going to go raid I Am Not Myself. So feel free to join the raid. I will, if you have, if you're a subscriber, why isn't that working? Hello? Raid command? Well, it's not cooperating today. Yes, thank you, TBD Gamer. Good to see you. Anyway, just go and paste a bunch of raid emojis or emotes there in I Am Not Myself's channel, and I'll see you all over there. But thanks for joining us, and thank you again, JR.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, that should be the raid. And I got to bring it up on Twitch, but
Good deal.
cool. That was really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Time flies when there is a ton of content. In Laravel. Laravel's got a ton of stuff to cover.
It does. Cool. All right, I'm just doing some raid stuff. Sorry, a little distracted.